My name is Nick Carter. I am currently the worship and missions pastor at Mercy Hill Church. Well, as every teenager goes through those times of confusion and doubt and trying to find out who you are, I kind of clung to music and found identity in that. And so I was the acoustic, somber, emo kid. So I came to faith in Christ when I was 17 years old, and I began to realize that there was something interesting and super creative that God did when He made music. I began to listen to music that ascribed praise and honor, and that really spoke a lot about who God was and who He could be for other people. And that's kind of what started to change my heart and change my perspective on how powerful music actually is. Worship isn't just a religious thing. Sometimes people think that worship is just hey, you worship God, or if you're, a Muslim, you go to a mosque, or if you're a Hindu, you go to a temple. But worship, for me, in my understanding of life through my studies of the Bible and philosophy, I've seen worship be something you're ascribing, you're giving adoration and affection to something or someone. But in the Christian context, I would say that worship has something to do with music. It has something to do with music brings emotions out. It brings feelings that no other thing in this world can do. You go to the tribes of Africa and you hear the drum beat, and immediately there's that thumping. Or you go to an orchestra and you hear the violinist playing. They're worshiping something, and music for me is what I use to worship God. It's a expressing and giving thanks to what He's done internally and eternally for my life and for what He's done for me personally. My past was purely identity driven. In high school, I did everything under the sun in order to gain a personality. I was Nick Carter, in high school I was Nick Carter, so it could be from, drinking and drugs, etc., etc. But deep down inside, I was just trying to fill a void of identity. I was trying to, I got piercings that I never should have gotten. I, went to places that I never should have been at. I ran into people and I ran with a crowd that just wasn't the healthiest. But in my identity, it was exactly who I wanted to be in that season. Also, growing up, I didn't have a father. So anytime I would look for identity and approval in people, because I was always trying to fill that void of a father, and always trying to make myself feel emboldened and secure, and that led into insecurity. It's interesting when you try to fill your void with identity, how insecure you become as a person. And I was a very insecure high school student, and it wasn't until I heard the truth of who God was as being a father. I grew up in and out of church a little bit, and I always heard about God being this father, and I said, if God is a father, I want nothing to do with that, because my dad, unfortunately, was not a part of my life growing up, and the men that did come along the way with my biological mother weren't the healthiest, and even I had some men that we trusted in the family do some really bad physical damage, mentally damage, just abuse, and to me personally. So again, this construct of identity was a huge thing that made me who I was at that time. And I was reckless. I was a mess. I was angry, embittered. But all that again shaped me into the man that God was going to meet, or the 70-year-old man, if you can say that He was going to meet in 2008. I was at a student camp, and I heard the truth that God was a father, that He loved me, that He would never leave, He would never forsake me. And I love the psalm. It says, even if your father and mother abandon you, I'll always be there. And that's kind of what shaped me into who I am today. The thing from my past that I most regret is, again, trying to fill that identity and becoming an insecure person where I would damage other people. I used people, I broke hearts, I stole, I cheated, I lied in order to fill that void, and I regret those things. In high school graduation, I actually went up to one of the girls that I was dating in this time of me being so confused, and I apologized to her. I was like, you know what, like I'm so sorry for everything that I've done to you, everything that I have, taken from you. And her response was so funny, not funny to me, but funny in her eyes. It was kind of like a booyah moment. She said, "You know what, Nick Carter, you are sorry." And I was like, "Oh, oh okay. But it's a learning experience also in that. Even in that moment, God has been so faithful now to redeem all those things. And yeah, I regret it. I do, but I'm forgiven, and that's what's true. So, one of my favorite books is by a guy named Zach Eswine. It is called Spurgeon's Sorrows, and basically he takes the story of Charles Spurgeon, which was a Christian philosopher. He was a preacher in the early church, and he takes his life. And Charles Spurgeon was a man that actually preached his first message as a young 21-year-old. In his first message, he preached his congregation of 500 people. A fire started in the back. Somebody screamed fire, and half of his congregation died. So immediately he steps into this thing of Christianity in his life, and he is rattled with the effect of him feeling like it was his fault that these people died, which then drove him to a place of depression. So this book, Spurgeon's Sorrows, is a clear picture of what it means to be a Christian, having the hope of Christ, having the Holy Spirit living inside of you, having plans and promises in the Bible fulfilled, but still wrestling with this aspect of anxiety and depression. It was so healing for me in my seasons of depression. I go back to it often and reference it. I see myself from 10 years from now being a faithful father, being a faithful husband. I'll have a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old then, so that's weird to think about now. But having teenagers and trying to raise them up in the admonition of the Lord, hoping that their lives are being used for God, hoping that my wife loves me more, hoping that I've lost a little bit more weight. So all the things, I really pray that my life is a greater example of Christ all the more, even from today. I'm an open book, and a lot of things that come out of my mouth are true and are genuine. But even still today, a thing that I probably could get off my chest personally is that I still deal with identity. I deal with identity crisis every single day after I wake up, and I surrender those things. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people that know me are thinking jolly and awesome and et cetera, et cetera. I just call myself awesome. That's so conceited. They're thinking whatever it is, but I still struggle with identity. I still struggle with who I really am now in Christ. I have a source of identity. I have a true Heavenly Father. I have a wife. I have a son, and all those things can give me identity. But at the end of the day, I have to resolve that my identity first and foremost is Christ, and sometimes I miss that. A person I would love to thank in my life for the maturity and the growth and the healing and the process that I've gone through in my life, first and foremost is my wife. When we were dating in college, I began to just tell her the things of my past and tell her the brokenness that I went through, the brokenness that I caused. And we were sitting in a Barnes & Noble parking lot, drinking our little Starbucks. Shout out to Starbucks. We were drinking our Starbucks, and I began to just kind of pour my heart and tell her all these things. And again, I'm a guy that struggles with identity, and I tell her all these things. And she looked over at me and she said, "You know what, Nick Carter?" And I was getting ready for the liner back in high school. She said, "You know what? I love you despite of you." And for me, that was the moment that I knew this woman really does love me, because I laid everything out. I told her my dirty secrets. I let her smell my dirty laundry, which was not good. But in that moment, I knew that this was the woman that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with and commit myself to, and knowing that she would help me continue to point me to a greater source of identity, which was Christ. The greatest accomplishment in my life personally, I have two. Number one is getting married to Natalie, my wife. But number two is probably my son. His name's Ezra, and I have another son on the way. But for Ezra, I'm so thankful for the opportunity to know what it means to be a son by being a father. Again, I didn't grow up with a dad. I didn't grow up, knowing how to be a son. I kind of found my own way, and even as a parent today, as a father today, I'm thankful for the opportunity that my Father in heaven allows me the opportunity to know what it means to be a son while being a father. So I think that's a huge accomplishment for me. My worst failure has probably been times that I've let Natalie down, by succumbing to things that just were not godly. By not honoring her how I speak with her, by choosing my flesh over her, because as a believer now, I guess I do my job and I work and all kind of stuff, but my first ministry is always her. And I think that's my greatest failure every time I choose anything else over her. My favorite moment in life, honestly, has to be back to the conversation. I'm so specific and emotional and reminiscent on things. And probably the first conversation I had with Natalie, sharing my heart, and her that phrase will forever be embedded in my heart, my mind. I love you despite of you, because that was the love of God in her for me, and because nobody would, if you heard the conversation, if you were a fly in that room or in the car, in the car, it would be, wow, like who are you? Who's this guy? And for her to say, I love you despite of you.